Welcome back to the Mackem in the Middle podcast. This isn't a reaction to a game, but more so a reaction to the season so far, as we are at the time of recording exactly halfway through the season with 23 games played. We'll be looking ahead to tonight's game against Sheffield Wednesday at home. I will not make the mistake of saying Sheffield like I did on their podcast, which did upset a few fans, so I apologise for that. And then we'll end by talking about the transfers. Obviously, the transfer window will be opening 2 days' time. So we'll be discussing who we can bring in, where we need to bring players in, and potentially who could be leaving the club as well. Joined by John, Dan, and Dylan once again. This is very early for me. Don't know about you three. But how are you getting on?
Yeah, I'm right, thanks. Yeah.
Not too bad. Bit knackered, like, because as you said, it's quite early, but yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, it is 10 to 11 in the morning for anyone wondering. But you know, with COVID and the Christmas holidays, that is very early for me. But we'll start with the season, John. So far, like I say, 23 games in at the moment, averaging 2 points per game, 23 games, 46 points, 1 point from top. Wigan, obviously 1 point below us with 2 games in hand. I think their game this match week has been postponed as well. So tonight's an extra chance for Sunderland to kind of gain some more ground on them and push a little higher up the table. But initially, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the season so far?
I'd probably be on an 8, maybe. I think the only thing that's maybe sort of hindering us at the moment is those stupid draws at likes of Shrewsbury and those types of games. You can accept points at Ipswich and those types of places if you get the business done at the so-called lesser clubs. Obviously, we know we've had we've been sort of smashed a few times, but sort of the halfway stage. If you take everything into context, I don't think we're in a bad place at all. I think we're in sort of maybe almost a holding pattern, ready for January. So we'll talk about it later on. But seeing what we can do, this is really the time to kick on, and it is still in our hands, which is always hasn't always been the case. And when we have had in previous years games in hand, we've always struggled with that pressure. So it's nice to see us getting the points on the board, and with a win tonight, I know other teams will have games in hand on us. But just psychologically getting to the top of the league, we haven't been top for very long since we've been down here. So that's got to be a massive psychological plus. But everything at the moment for me is going in the right direction. Maybe the injuries are a bit of a negative, but that's just one of them things. But for me, I'd probably go down with an 8.
Yeah, and obviously the season's been up, down, and up again. Dylan, really, started the season well, went through a tough patch, and we've picked up form since. I think it's 8 games unbeaten since the last time we lost, which was coincidentally against Sheffield Wednesday, in the league at least. But when you consider the run that we went on, granted, I think it was only 2 or 3 league games that we lost in that spell. Obviously, we lost to 3 League Two teams as well. So it was probably a good time for that bad patch to come in. To think that we're second after all that kind of fallout and panic on social media and in the grounds and the atmosphere, to be 1 point from top level on games with Rotherham at this point of the season, like John said, with this many injuries and COVID cases and whatnot, we're not doing badly.
Yeah, no, exactly. Obviously, as you said, we're near the top. We're very much in amongst the race for automatic promotion, which is a nice change because we've been at points quite far from that in the past couple of seasons. And I mean, if you just think about that first season in League One, that Luton by this point were like nowhere near the top, and then they just blitzed the league second half of the season.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where it's the time now. Obviously, we've got January coming, so strengthen where we need to strengthen, get in depth in the positions where we're lacking due to injuries, and just keep that consistency and just keep pushing. And if we keep playing the way we have been recently, there's no reason why we shouldn't win the league.
Yeah. Obviously, Rotherham are top, Dan, 1 point above us, level on games, and they've just ended with a 1-0 defeat to Accrington. I think it was 21 game unbeaten streak, which sounds very, very impressive. And if someone was to say, the top of the league went on a 21-game beaten streak, you'd think, well, there must be, 9, 10, 11 points clear of second. But they are taking all the credit from kind of outsiders of League One and EFL supporters as kind of the runaway winners of the league. But to consider that we're only 1 point behind them, got an entire starting 11 out injured. Obviously, we got absolutely battered off them in the reverse fixture. We still have to play them at home. It's not as bad as, like I say, outsiders would make it seem.
No, definitely not. That loss for Rotherham was always coming as well. It was just a matter of when, because you've got to be a very, very special team to be able to continue the form they were on. I would say back when we got hammered by them 5-0, we were on such a good run, but I felt like we were going too fast for how we were wanting to play. I feel like we were steaming ahead with all the new signings, with Lee Johnson's philosophy, etc. But it was a case of like where your brain goes faster than your mouth and you stumble over your words. That period was always going to come, and we needed it to humble us, thankfully. And obviously the results against Sheffield Wednesday, Rotherham, Portsmouth weren't the best, but the bounce back has been incredible. When you look at Rotherham, they've got the same amount of wins as us. The only difference, we've lost one more than they've drawn.
Yeah.
And you really, really can't take anything away from that. In terms of the season as a whole, I'd say it's been the best season we've had since in one. Because it's not even just the case of we're up in the automatics and sniffing around there. We're seeing a lot of talent that's come through the ranks this year, that Lee Johnson's been able to bring out the best of players. At the start of the season, we had a lot of stick for Alex Pritchard, Leon Diaku, even Lyndon Gooch, even though he still gets it. And we've been able to see the likes of Dan Neil and Embleton really relish, especially after Embleton's long contract that he got. And just being able to see these players come through and really take charge. Even Bailey Wright was never going to be a starter at the start of the season, but he's come into fruition and he's been immense since he's been brought in. And I just think we've got such a good foundation now that we can really push on. And all the squad believes the same end story, that we'll get that promotion.
Yeah. And like I say, John, we went through that tough patch, and I think I've mentioned it in other podcasts, but that bad run of form came at the perfect time for Sunderland, considering, I think over half or around about that many games in that period were cup games. They had no impact on your League One whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. We've had the Papa John's trophy. We've done all that, I think, and although we enjoyed the Arsenal trips, I think the cup games have been more, to bed in the youngsters and get them half ready for, first team opportunities. And the league does have to take a massive priority. And now I think again it's maybe set us up nicely for the rest of the season now, because we've only got we've literally got a whole week between games, which will help. Johnson's a massive tactical coach, and you can see when we do get the right players, how Broadhead, Pritchard, Daniel, Embleton, Stewart, how they play sort of forward, getting those guys on the training pitch for sort of 5 days. I think we're in a massive sort of, I don't know what the word is, sort of advantage with that type of thing. So yeah, the sort of the little sting with the cup games, yes, no one wants to lose games, but ultimately, if you said to me you're out of every cup, you get promoted, I think I'll take that, you'll take that, I think we'd all take it.
Yeah, definitely at this point after 4 long seasons in this league. But I suppose the other positive about where Sunderland are now, Dylan, and where they could be, at the end of the season, is that obviously, other than Rotherham, I don't know if this is just kind of bias, but you can see other teams dropping points, here and there, kind of everywhere they go. Obviously, there's no easy game in League One other than Doncaster, but there's so many games this season, in our seasons in the past, that we've dropped points to. Shrewsbury, for example, this season for us. You've got Rotherham, who got beat off Accrington. it's a very open league, and it's all about consistency for getting promoted. And I think that's the one thing that's improved from Sunderland this season, just being more consistent.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Obviously, we'd see if in previous seasons we'd like win 4-5-0 one week and then get beat 2-1 by third off bottom, and it would just be. And we haven't seen as much of that this season. Obviously, we've been getting decent results most of the time. It's just one of those ones where keep it up and hopefully pull away from the other teams, which will just hopefully start lacking that same consistency. Like you look at Wigan, I know they're only 1 point behind us with 2 games in hand, and whilst they've got a lot of like late winners recently, a lot of their squad were with us last season, and we saw them sort of drop off as the season went on. So wishful thinking. Hopefully, the same thing's going to happen to them at Wigan, but if it doesn't, then it's just about not letting their performance be part of the equation. Just keep getting the wins and keep playing the way we have so far, especially in the past few weeks, and just get as many points as we possibly can.
Yeah. And I mean, this would probably be a positive anyway, but Rotherham are one striker injury away, Dan, from having to play Will Grigg. So I don't know if that is going to be a positive or not, because, Will Grigg is terrible when he plays for us. As soon as he plays for a different team, he tends to score goals. I don't think he's done too well for Rotherham this season, but, I think, is it Smith up front for Rotherham? If he picks up an injury, they might never score a goal again.
Well, I'll tell you what, Will Grigg came on in the 64th or 65th minute against Accrington Stanley. 4 minutes later, they scored.
Yeah. It's like the Denver Hume effect at Sunderland, Everton.
Yeah, exactly. If I was a Rotherham fan, I would be quite scared, but at the same time, I'd imagine they'd have a bit of funds to play with in January. So if worse did come to worse, unfortunately, they might be able to get someone in, and someone with quality. I'd say frustrating thing with the Rotherham at the moment is that then next 10 games or 8 games against all lower division teams. So it really means that we've got to put our stamp on the league, because it takes one shithouse win from a lower table team to really just affect the whole season at this stage of the game. So if we can really keep this momentum going, and hopefully the squad don't care about other teams, how they've been playing, other results, etc., and just only focus on how we're playing and who we've got in front of us, not what's happened in the past, we should be able to just keep going, because when it comes to that crunch time at the end of the season, the last 5-6 games of the season, if we've got that momentum going, that's where we can put the pressure on Rotherham, put the pressure on Wigan or anyone else who's up in the top 2 or 3 or 4 spaces, and really just make them worried that if they trip up, we're there to snatch that place straight out of them. And with the squad we got, I just can't see us stopping at any point.
Yeah. We'll look ahead to tonight's game briefly before we move on to kind of a debate about what Sunderland need to do in January. But Sheffield Wednesday tonight, John, on a Thursday, coincidentally. Just looking at the table, by definition, they are the hardest team to beat in this league. They've only lost 3 all season, but they have drawn 10. So they are sat 8th on 37 points, which is obviously 9 points behind us, but you haven't played a game less. It's another one of them games that, it's 2 very big clubs, 2 clubs that will want to get promoted this season. Obviously, Sheffield Wednesday haven't particularly started overly well, but they'll be up there towards the end of the season, probably make the playoffs. It's a real test for Sunderland, and granted that we've got the best home record in the league, it should be a very interesting one as well.
Yeah, it is. It's probably one of the bigger games that we've had recently. Obviously, we know Doncaster. We sort of brushed them aside and killed them. We know it's going to be a different entity. They're going to be used to a big crowd as well. But hopefully the stadium like tonight's rocking. Always is when, especially this season at home, and our home form's really, really good. But it is an interesting one to see how we're going to cope with the injuries, and the team at the moment sort of picks itself. But I don't think it matters who you play at the moment. You know, if we were playing at their place, then maybe I'd be a little bit, skeptical. And don't get me wrong, it's going to be tough. But I think at home, with the crowd and, especially the way we're playing as well, they're probably full of confidence as well. Then, I can't see anything other than, I don't think it's going to be, sort of a controller game for 90 minutes. I don't think it's going to be like that. But I think we've just about got enough at home, to sort of nick it sort of 2-0, 2-1, that type of thing.
Yeah. Is it a must-win, Dylan, tonight? If Sunderland come away with a point, is that going to be seen as a negative, considering, we are the only team in the top three to play? This is obviously another chance for Sunderland to go top of the league and put more pressure on Wigan to win their games in hand. So is it a must-win tonight?
I would say yes. We definitely need to win this. Like even if we were to draw, that will put us on 47 points, and then if Wigan win the next game, that would put them a point ahead of us with still a game in hand. And it
Be 2
appears
games in hand, I think, actually.
No, after yeah, because we would have played the next one, so even worse. Yeah. So but it's like any chance to go top of the table obviously is a must win, and especially after we got smashed off them in the reverse fixture, it's just one of them. It's like it's about making a statement as well and show them, look, we're not just a bunch of mugs and turn over 3-0 and then not have seen the repercussions of it when you play us again. So I think we just need to take it to them and get the 3 points and just get top of the league and then do everything we can to
stay there
the rest of the season.
Yeah. And I think looking back at the reverse fixture, Dan, that we did obviously lose 3-0 in, we did a podcast with one of the Wednesday fan groups as well. We kind of talked about what went wrong for Sunderland there, essentially. One of the main things we pointed out was Sunderland just having no physicality, in midfield and defence and attack. We lost every first ball, lost every second ball, had no desire to win the ball. And obviously we were very low in confidence at the time as well, coming off the back of that heavy defeat against Rotherham. I would say a lot of that's changed since the last time we played Wednesday. Obviously 8 games unbeaten, confidence will be a lot higher than it was at the time. I feel like our players have got, more physicality in them. Confidence plays a big part in the way you go into challenges. And granted, you don't want to be going in too strong because referees in this league are likely to kind of knee-jerk react to them. But I would say a lot's changed from the time we played Sheffield Wednesday.
Yeah, definitely. There's a belief in this squad now. There's a clear plan, there's a clear philosophy, there's a clear idea of where we're trying to get to and how we're supposed to act, how we're supposed to lead, how we're supposed to show ourselves on the pitch and off the pitch. That being the Sheffield Wednesday Stadium was always going to be a tough game, a physical game as well. Because if you think back to last season, they got relegated in like the 90th minute, and obviously they all had their championship players left. So it was always going to be at the start of the season, their experience and their quality was always going to get the better of any side that's in a bit of disarray or a bit of low confidence. But this game feels a lot different now. After going to the Emirates and watching how we played against Arsenal, a Premier League team who played a majority of first team, if not first team bench players, brought the physical side to them, and large proportions of the game they couldn't really handle it. Even the likes of the Broadhead goal, that was us, the desire that we had to win the ball and create that goal. So if we can take that sort of same mindset of just absolutely, we take no shit, we just go at them from the minute the game kicks off, like we did against Doncaster, give them no breathing space, especially with the crowd at the Stadium of Light. I think it could be a completely different situation. The only problem to the game tonight is Sheffield Wednesday. In their next 9 games, they play 5 of they play 5 of the top 6. So if they beat us, it'll be a real stamping point for them and like a warning for the rest of the 5 other teams that they're due to play. they're going to come back and try and get into that automatics, because I think that's where their fans, the manager, the owners want them to be.
Yeah.
So if they can get a result against us, it'll be a statement for them. But if we can pull off a statement result tonight, it'll really put the pressure on Wigan and Rotherham. And also, every game at this point is a must-win. Even if it's against 24th place, it's a must-win, in my opinion. We just can't afford to drop points. If we put the pressure on other people, they're the ones that are going to slip up. But if we drop the points, then we've got nothing to go for.
Yeah, very true. We'll go with predictions for the game tonight. And John, I'll start with you.
I think I said after the Doncaster game, I think it's going to be 2-0. I think Ross Stewart scoring a screamer from Dan Neil, so hopefully that's the case.
It was, yeah. Dylan?
I'd say maybe 2-1, because when they beat us the first time, although we didn't play well at all, they did look good going forward. So I think they will get a goal. So I'll say 2-1.
Yeah. And Dan, predictions for tonight's game?
Oh, I'd maybe say 2-1. The optimistic person inside me says 3-1, but I'm saying 2-1. I think they'll get a goal. They're quite dangerous in attack, but I think we've just got better quality than them.
Well, I think it's going to finish 4-0 to Sunderland, personally.
I'd love that.
I would take that, absolutely. Go 1-up on there in the reverse fixture result. It's quite hard to say that. Anyway, moving on to the last thing, which is probably the main thing, I suppose. Obviously, it's 2 days until January, which for most people just means New Year, New Year resolutions. To anyone that watches football, it's the opening of the transfer window. Sunderland have a fair bit of work to do in it, I would say, at the moment, and that's depending on players leaving the club as well, which is quite likely with certain players that we will mention. How big is this transfer window for Sunderland, Dylan? We've lost Broadhead for the season. I think O'Nien's out for a couple of months, maybe. Huggins is probably out till March as well. We've lost a lot of what I would say first-team players who would be playing for us right now and would play at night if they were fit, to injury. So just how big is it and how important is it that Sunderland get it right?
This is a huge window. I mean, come the end of the season, if done correctly, this will probably be one of the defining windows of the past couple of years for us. Because I mean, as you said, we've got a lot of very decent players out with injuries. I mean, Broadhead, but with no doubt we've lost our best form of attack and output, especially recently. So it's about replacing that, and it's about, I mean, obviously you look at the fullback areas, we've got Serkin just coming back from injury, but Huggins is still out, and Denver Hume's just an atrocious footballer. So it's like it's just about strengthening where we need to strengthen and replacing what we've lost. And if we do it right, I'm very confident that will go on to win the league. But it's one of those ones where if we don't open the purse and actually spend some money, and we just try and get the cheap options, then it could come back to bite us in the arse at the end of the season.
Yeah, would you agree with that, John? Is this the biggest transfer window? Well, certainly the last few years, but it's since we've been in League One.
Yeah, I think it is. I think where we're at, we've given ourselves a real good chance, and it's I think we really do need to nail this. I said on the weekend that Monday, that we need, we probably needed to sort of maybe 3 or 4 anyway, and then you're adding into that, like you say, Broadhead is probably finished for the season. We absolutely, I hope there's a computer that we could just type in players like Nathan Broadhead, but with a clean injury record. Hopefully, we've got one of those at the academy, because he's quite integral to sort of the way we play. After he came off at Arsenal, it's we just weren't the same team at all. And you could even look at bringing Aidan O'Brien on. It's just not the same. And if we're going to lose that dynamic, then like the guys are saying, I think we're in a bit of trouble. So we really do need to nail this. And it's not just Broadhead. I still think we need another winger. I still think we need sort of a big guy in midfield, sort of an enforcer. I still think we need maybe another another, a typical League One, maybe centre back in there. I still think we need a fullback.
Yeah.
And then probably even we needed a striker, I think, before Broadhead got injured.
Yeah.
So, it's very, very top heavy transfers, and we don't want to just be, we'll just pick up the old guy here and there, and that, I know we're gonna have to be patient. That's just the way the market works. And obviously with COVID, teams are reluctant from the Championship and the Premier League to let their squad players go, for not being able to fulfill fixtures. So it's going to be a real. I think we will see what the structure is behind the scenes and how good it is. But we do need players in, and we do need them to hit the ground running. And we haven't got time, to get them in, and you sort of wait for your Huggins and wait for your Circus to get up to speed. It really does need to be sort of 3 or 4 coming in and hitting the ground running.
Yeah. One thing that I said on Twitter, Dan, which a lot of people, and I say a lot of people, didn't agree with, was saying that I think Sunderland need to bring in around 5-6 players. A lot of people replied saying we only need 1 or 2 quality additions for us to put us in a very good position. But as John said there, before Broadhead got injured, the likelihood of O'Brien leaving was very high. So the chances are we'd have 1 striker at the club. When we play with 2 strikers, realistically, you need to sign another 2, so you can have 1 to come off the bench and change the game. Although not a new signing, obviously Jack Diamond out on loan currently, doing well at Harrogate. He's likely to come back from loan. So while he's not a new signing, he is a new face to the squad this season, so he would be included in that. A centre midfielder. We've got 3 currently, one of which is injured more than he plays, and I don't think that's actually an exaggeration. I think he actually has missed more games than he's played this season, Evans. We have no right back at the club with Huggins injured, and with Alves likely to go back to West Ham, because he's not getting much game time. Possibility of another centre half coming in. Is saying Sunderland could bring in 6 players really over the top?
No, I don't think so at all. When you look at our squad at the moment, you're seeing that over 50-60% of the bench is under 23 players, which is great to get the youth experience. But when you need it for a title challenge coming to the end of the season, if we don't have anything to fill that, we're going to have to rely on inexperience to carry us through the season, which carry us right through to the end, which is such a big gamble. At the moment, the striker situation it's a must we get a striker in, because Aidan O'Brien's got COVID. Ross Stewart is our only striker.
Yeah.
And then it's Will Harris. And don't get me wrong, what I've seen Will Harris do in the under-23 league is insane. It's quality. He's a quality player. But to bring him in immediately if Ross Stewart
big step up,
that's a massive step up. Under-23 league compared to the physicality of the League One, will he be able to handle it? And to the extent that we all need him to, as our main number 9 and the only number 9, that's a huge step up. But at the same time, if he comes on in his first game and he gets injured, then we got nothing. So a striker is a must. I'd also say we need fullbacks, 100%. We need a left side and a right side. At the moment, we got Gooch and Diaku playing as wing backs, but if we could have more defensive-minded fullbacks, or even just ones that play in that position ordinarily and have done most of their career, it would allow Diaku and Gooch to maybe play back to where they used to play in, and also it gives us more options on the bench. We could bench Diaku or bench Gooch, etc., or bench other players and have a stronger bench rather than just a strong starting 11 and nothing on the bench. And like you said, Frederick Alves looks like he's certain to go back. It's just not worked for him, unfortunately. So there's a sub centre back gone, and if one of our centre backs gets injured, etc., we don't really have any cover on the bench, because we're already playing all 3 of them. So I'd say we need potentially 2 centre backs.
But I think obviously Jamali will be fit soon, I hope. Like I said to John, after the Doncaster game, he seems to have just disappeared for now. But I haven't heard of any setbacks. I think he should be back soon. So that would kind of be the 4th centre half. But I would agree that you need 1, maybe.
Yeah, no one really knows the progress on him right now. If he's fit, then great. Then yeah, only need one. But as things stand, with no news on him, I would say potentially two, and then obviously a centre mid as well. So I don't think you're anywhere near off the boat when you say 5 or 6 signings, and each of these players that we bring in has to be able to hit us from the get go. Every player that's playing right now should be fighting to play for themselves, play for the team, and to prove the point why they should be starting and not the players on the bench.
Yeah.
These new signings need to come with that same attitude. Why they have been brought in, why they should be starting over the regulars this season, and why they should be fighting for this title. What gives them the right over the players that have played 50% of the season so far. So everyone needs to be under that same mentality to be able to really get this right. And if it does, that'll be perfect.
Yeah. It's a good point what he's made there, Dylan. It's easy to bring in players just to make up the numbers and, give them a couple of grand a week and let them sit there. And if someone gets injured, you can chuck them in. But the one good thing about recruitment so far under Speakman and under Johnson is we're signing quality players, not just players for the sake of it. Granted, there might be one or two that hasn't really lived up to the expectations of when we signed them, at least not yet. But, Broadhead is quite a good example because I think he was brought in and it was probably our most underwhelming signing. He'd been on loan at Burton, hadn't really done anything. He's 22, 23 years old, hadn't pushed himself into the first team at Everton yet. People thinking, he's going to be a backup player. If someone gets injured, they'll throw him in. But he ended up being probably definitely our most important attacker, possibly one of our most important players in the team. It's just very important that whoever we bring in, however many people we bring in, are players that can challenge for the starting 11.
Yes, exactly. There's no point signing anybody with the mindset, right, they're going to be there as a backup if we need them. Everyone you have in the squad should be capable of playing in the starting 11 at a decent standard. Because obviously, as you say, if someone gets injured or someone has a drop in form and you need to bring them out, then the person who needs to go in needs to be able to do just as good of a job, if not better. So it's all about just having a consistent squad of talented players who can all do a job when given the chance, and then that would sort of motivate everyone to be better anyway, because they know that they've got 2 or 3 other talented players in their same position who are fighting for that same spot. So those that are getting the chances are going to be wanting to play well every week, and those that aren't are going to be stepping it up in training, and any chances they might get in coming off the bench and that, they want to impress with it and play football, because that's what the majority of footballers want to do, just to play the game.
Yeah. Well, I believe some of you, hopefully all, I don't know, have got names in terms of players that someone could look to bring in. Obviously, clubs in January windows are reluctant to sell players, especially if they're in the first team, because it is hard to replace them. They usually demand significantly higher fees than they would in the summer. There's literally 30 days or 31 days. How many days are in January? 31, isn't it? I should know that. If you sell someone even in the first week of the window, there's not much time to replace them. So I'd imagine Speakman and Johnson will be taking that into account. But I know, John, I've heard you a couple of times mention a few different players that Sunderland could potentially look to bring in. Whether they would be able to pull it off is yet to be seen, but that is the whole point of this discussion, to kind of get that feel out there. I can't imagine Speakman's going to pick up on many of these, if any of them, but you never know. But I think Scott Twine was one you mentioned, wasn't it, John?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind. Obviously, we never know what, where we're going to sort of pull them out from. I doubt most people would have heard of Huggins and Sirkin, and look how they've turned out. I probably haven't even heard of Broadhead.
If you played Football Manager, you will 100% have heard of Sirkin. I used to love him on that game. Yeah,
unfortunately, I've only just got back into it this year. Into football. I've just won the league with Sunderland, so that's good. But yeah, you do you know what I mean? You never know. You never know what Premier League sort of academies that they're watching. I can only go on what I've seen, and who I think and who we're linked to. It's got to be doable for everyone. I'd look a few a few names this morning, and I was looking at name that always pops up is Lawrence Shankland, who's
Yeah.
out in Belgium.
I was
He's
thinking about
out
him the
there.
other day, actually.
Yeah, he's out of Belgium at the moment, and by looking at the stats, he's not really playing. He's got I think he's got a 3-year deal out there, so maybe it could be a sort of a loan deal. Maybe we'll link with him. I think loosely, sort of going maybe a couple of seasons ago. So that's maybe one to look at as a like for like, maybe for Stuart. A player I was quite impressed with when I watched the Plymouth game was Kamara in centre midfield.
Yeah.
And he's absolutely massive. I think we're crying out for that, and he was actually really good on the ball, which would suit our philosophy, and help out with maybe Corey Evans' injury record. We've been linked as well. I think I think it was Hume, wasn't it, from Ireland, and I've seen another rumor about another striker from Ireland, Georgie Kelly. Obviously, I know nothing about him. And the only other player I really sort of picked out was the Oxford captain, Elliot Moore, which wouldn't be a bad shout, but I think we'd then have to be in, to sort of stump up a bit of cash. But I think at the moment, I think we do have to see that we're not expecting, sort of, the Will Grigg money to sort of be banded around. But I think we should be in a position to maybe pick out, the better players of League One. I don't think Wigan or Rotherham are going to sell us any players anytime soon. But I think, if we can go and maybe pick off one or two from the chasing pack, sort of a slightly lower down, I don't think that's the end of the world. And with the COVID thing, we dangled a bit of money in front of them. I'm sure a few clubs would sort of snap your hands off for it. But then, adding to those players, I think you have got to think that we've maybe got some sort of championship, quality sort of squad players who are not getting in. But again, because they're not playing, I couldn't really tell you sort of who they are.
Yeah. Dylan, I believe you've got a few as well, if you can pronounce them.
Yeah, I've got a few. The first one, I'll just get him out the way because I think he's probably the only one who's slightly unrealistic on the list, and that's Oladapo Afolayan from Bolton. Obviously, he plays on the left wing, and as we've said before, the wing is somewhere that we need to recruit this window because we're short of one or two. I think this lad's probably what we need. Like he's quick, he's direct, and he likes to take players on, and he likes shooting from distance. I'm pretty sure he scored 4 goals from outside the box this season, but it could have been more. He's got in the league, he's got 7 goals and 3 assists, which means he's contributed to like 34% of Bolton's overall goals in the league. So, but that obviously means that he's probably one of, if not their most important player. So, which is why I can imagine them definitely not wanting to sell him, but he only signed for them on a free in the summer. So I mean, if we were to put a decent bid in, they might accept it because they still have other players which are giving a decent output. Like they've got Ewan Doyle, he's got 5 goals, and they've got Kachunga, who's got 4. So they could then invest any money that we do pay them into other parts of the squad. And then as for the player himself, like I'm assuming he's very very happy at Bolton because obviously he was on loan there, and then he's made the move permanent, but he never really got a proper chance at West Ham, and I'm sure he's eager to get back to the top as soon as possible, and I don't think it would be unfair to say that he's got a better chance of doing that at Sunderland than he does at Bolton, so I would definitely like to see him come in. And then we were saying we need a centre back. Obviously, it's no secret that we need to recruit in that position in this window, and I was looking at like decent League One centre backs. I think Jack Tucker from Gillingham would be a very good shout because obviously we've got some decent centre backs. Like Flanagan's been good this season, so is Wright. But over their overall time at the club, they've both lacked that sort of consistency that we need, which is why I think we should sign Tucker because he's still very young. He's been one of the better centre halves in the league for the past few seasons. Obviously, I know Gillingham aren't doing too well this season, but that's not entirely his fault. They'd probably be in a worse position if it weren't for him. Last season, he played 43 out of 46 league games, so he's clearly consistent and can play a lot. And I think he's played most of the league games this season. He's featured about 20 times, and he's scored as well. So, and I mean, his contract's up in the summer, as far as I'm aware. So I think Gillingham would probably want to cash in before they lost him for free because I can't imagine them being a team who's got bags of money, especially after they splashed out. I think it was last season, getting quite a few players in that didn't quite go to plan. But there'd probably be competition for him, because I saw he's been linked with Celtic and that in the past few years. But I mean, we've shown before that Sunderland still have a decent pulling power, even in League One. Like, obviously, we signed the two German lads in the summer. So I mean, with the team looking very much able to get automatics this season, I can't see why you wouldn't want to move. Who else have I got? Striker. I thought I went for a loan signing just in case we're not on as much of a budget as I'm hoping we are. I've looked at Jay Stansfield from Fulham. He's one of their sort of next big things coming through. He's been there since I think it was 2019-20 when he signed from Exeter. And in that first season, I know it was under 18s, but he scored 22 goals in 14 games, and he's already made his first team debut for them. He played against Villa at the start of 2020, but then he has had a couple of injuries, which is obviously not what you want to be hearing. But he's featured in 10 league games in 2021 because of those injuries, but still scored 6 and assisted 3. And then he's played 5 this season, which was all the Premier League 2 games that I'm aware of. He scored 3 and assisted 1, and he also played in the League Cup against Birmingham, and he actually got a goal. So I mean, he scored against a Championship side, which shows that he's not just stat padding against 17-year-olds in the youth leagues.
Yeah.
He has just come back from knee surgery on the 20th of December, so I'm not sure what his fitness level is like. But if he's fully fit come any time in January, I think it'll be worth a punt on loan, especially because we're low on numbers up front. I've only got 2 more left. I'll try not to waffle on for any longer. I just thought I'd briefly touch on that. Obviously, Trey Hume from Linfield, since I've been linked with him in real life. I'm not going to pretend I'd ever heard of him, so I had to sort of look, see what their fans were saying about him, try to see if I could find some highlights. That the Linfield fans seem to like him a lot. They say he's got a lot of potential. I looked. This season he's got 2 goals and 2 assists, which is he does like to get forward, which would obviously go well with the attacking philosophy that Johnson's been trying to stamp on the team this season. From what I was reading online, his strengths are sort of like his physicality, his aerial duels.
Yeah.
But I've seen some of their fans saying need to bulk up just a bit to sort of keep that going in England. So I had to look at some highlights on YouTube. I couldn't find many, but from what I saw, he does appear to be quite calm under pressure, good in the tackle. And I saw him. He likes to. He had a good eye for a pass forward, but I saw him drive the ball up the pitch himself a few times, which is obviously something that our squad tends to lack at points. We don't have too many players who just get the ball and run with it. And then I've seen it's rumoured that we'd only have to pay like 200,000 for him, and it's just at that price I'd say it's probably worth taking a punt, because whilst it's obviously a risk he'd be only able to adjust and possibly flop, there's also a chance he'd just up his game to a higher standard, and it would sort of resemble a certain right back from south of the border, Seamus Colvin, who signed for Everton for like 250,000 and was been there for however long now. Maybe is it 10 years now doing the
It's
business?
been a long time.
I know. Right, I've only got 1 left. So I've got I can't pronounce this one. I'm going to say Brendan Warredu from Colchester, and we've all talked previously about how we just need a big bastard in the midfield to control things in the centre of the pitch. I think this will be a good player to bring in to do that. He's a fan favourite at Colchester. I think he's 6'3". He's big. He's strong. He can tackle, but he's not slow.
Sounds like the
by
start
any
of a
means.
chant, that.
Yeah, I'm
That
sure
West
we'll have.
Bramwell, wasn't it?
He's got decent pace to him for a big lad. I've seen he likes to dribble as well, and he can play long ball. So he's not just a big lump. So it wouldn't be sort of bringing him in, wouldn't be sacrificing the sort of pass and play style in the quick build up at the expense of just having someone big in the midfield. He's in Colchester. He's been there since 1920. He was on loan from Charlton, I think it was, and then obviously made that permanent last season. The only thing with this one is I saw there was rumoured interest from Nottingham Forest, so clearly he's not going too under the radar. But if we can get a decent offer in early, then hopefully we can maybe beat them, a team like that, to the signing of him, so you might be able to guarantee more game time, as well as obviously we've got the club seems to have a good vision going forward, and hopefully we can sell that to him. But yeah, those are the ones that I've picked out.
Yeah. And there's a lot of people on Twitter seems to think that we just don't need any more centre midfielders, John. But you know, for a start, I can't remember the last midfielder we had that was above like 6 foot. I think Winchester even himself is just below that. But we haven't. You're probably looking back to the likes of Ndai in the Premier League when we had the last big, tall, strong, good on the ball midfielder. You know, that could pass the ball, could win headers. Is there any reason why we shouldn't be looking to bring a centre mid in? Like I say, we've got two natural centre mids in Neil and Winchester. Obviously, people kind of bring Pritchard and Embleton into the conversation as well and use them as, you know, a centre midfielder option, but they're not centre midfielders, are they?
No, they're not. And like we were saying earlier, I don't think you can rely on Corey Evans. So I think it's definitely a one to get on. You know, with our injury record, you've maybe got to expect Neil or Winchester to pick up, you know, maybe 1 or 2 injuries from now until the end of the season. And you know, to keep the competitiveness in there, and you know, maybe to add a bit of steel and height. You know, I think maybe we do. You know, I was mentioning Kamara from Plymouth. You know, he's a sort of bloke who would, you know, he'd give us that height and strength and a bit of steel in there. You know, because we're not going to go out and play like we did against Doncaster against every team. We just can't do that. You know, we need a bit of steel and a bit of resilience. Not that I'm saying we don't have that, but it'd be nice to maybe reinforce that. Again, going back to Evans, you just can't rely on him. You know, he played the other day in a training game and sort of still had to be sort of substituted and, you know, sort of almost looked after. So for me, you know, with our set pieces as well, it will give us a bit more height in the box, you know, and, you know, against M4, because we're used to getting, you know, being sort of undone on corners sometimes, and, you know, it'll give us another dimension attacking wise. So I think it's maybe not the 100% priority, but I think it's definitely in there for me in the top 3.
Yeah. And last but not least, Dan, I believe you will have a couple of names as well.
Yeah, I've got a few. The obvious one is that Trey Hume. That's already been mentioned. Also, we could potentially go back to, if you think of the summer transfer window, there was that Josh Key from Exeter who we were very interested in. I think we offered quite a big deal for him to buy him, but it never came into fruition. We could potentially go back and look at that deal again. As well, there's a Brighton under-23 player, Mark Leonard, who we've been with. He looks like a very decent player. I've watched a couple of highlights. He looks very good on the ball, quite quick. He's a Scotland under-19 player as well. So if we're looking for that sort of young talent that we seem to have gone with this year, he could definitely be a one we could get in on loan or even potentially buy. As well, was it Adam that mentioned that the Tom Hay from the Netherlands? I had a look into him, and he looks like he's quite similar to Mark Leonard. Quite quick on the ball, quite skillful, creative attacking midfielder. I'm a big fan of like the Dutch youth and the Dutch second league as well. I think there's some quality players in there that just aren't getting the awareness that they need to know, or they need to have. So even if we potentially delve into that market, you'll find a lot more players like Tom Hay that could really be quality in the leagues that we're in at the moment, and even the Championship. They could definitely build into that because I think they're quite similar, those two leagues. Some potential far-fetched ones. There's for Leyton Orient, they have a striker called Harry Smith.
Yeah.
He's like 6'5", and he's only 26, and he seems to be an absolute bagsman. So I think he's got like 10 or 11 goals this season in League Two. If we want someone potentially like Ross Stewart, should he get injured, etc., we could potentially look at him. Or even, this is probably a bit more far-fetched, but for Forest Green, there's a player called Jamal Matt.
Yeah. He's what, 6'9", isn't he?
Yeah, and I know he's 32, but he's been playing unbelievably. Like, I think this season he's got about 13 goals and 7 assists in 20 games.
Yeah.
And then last year he was on like 17 goals and 3 assists. So if we want someone like that with a lot of experience, and potentially he could do it in the Championship with how big and strong he is, and like he's providing the numbers that we need. I think he could be a very decent shout. But if I was to choose like one or two of them that I would want to sign, it'd probably be that Mark Leonard and also that Trey Hume. I think having a proper fullback and a young attacking midfielder to go in with what we've already got would potentially be a wet dream to see how we would play. But they're the ones that I've got at the moment.
Yeah. And there's one more name that I'm going to chuck in, John, and it is out there a little bit, and there's probably people that would think this would be a pretty terrible signing, but Dan mentioned Leighton Orient there. They also have another striker, Paul Smith, if you remember him. He's played against us a few times. I think he was at Accrington one season. He's obviously been at QPR, very short, very small, very agile player. His goal return at clubs hasn't been particularly wonderful. But again, I always go back to Nathan Broadhead. Neither was his when he was at Burton. I think he scored like 2 or 3 goals for them. If you can remember him, of course, would you be against a signing like that?
I'll be honest, I can't really remember him. But we maybe got to be a bit wary of players who have come up against us and given us, sort of a good game, and then sort of the rest of the season they're not really putting up any trees.
Yeah.
It's probably if we could maybe pick him up for nothing for a few months, then maybe, but without really knowing, I think we need to maybe steer clear of I've seen plenty of players who I'll touch on. I think it's Wes Burns for Ipswich, who's not really that great. But against us, he looks absolutely unreal. Just had us on toast. You can guarantee he comes to Sunderland and he probably can't beat the first man on the cross. So, I think we've got to be a little bit wary with those types of players. The only other thing I'd add is I think maybe we do need to look at maybe, I think recalling Diamond's obviously a given, and maybe even giving Josh Hawkes a recall as well.
Yeah, very possible.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There were 2 players I missed off that I should have said. Yeah, I'm very in favour of recalling both of them. I think they could both give a very solid go at what we need to achieve this year.
I think with Diamond as well, he just offers something so different to what we have. He's very direct. He's very, very fast. I think he's certainly stronger than he was at the start of the season. And obviously he's getting, goals pretty much every week for Harrogate now. Granted, a league below, but you can only play who's in front of you, is the saying, and he's doing very well in that league. He could play a big part this season, Dylan.
Yeah, definitely. I think when he was last season, when he was getting game time for us, obviously there was sometimes he was just lacking the ability to beat his man at the last minute. But that's something he's clearly improved on this season. But like, it's not like sort of decent performances is a new thing for him. Obviously, I remember. I think it was his first appearance for us last season when we played against Lincoln. Was it Lincoln? He ran down the wing. And then just stopped, and we all thought he'd sort of ruined the chance. And then with his weak foot, just put it in the far corner. So he's clearly a very talented player. I mean, obviously he's been getting a lot of game time at Harrogate, and he's played very well. So by all means, bring him back. And if he's gonna continue that for us, he definitely be very important in this running.
Yeah. Well, we are getting up time, so we will cut it there. Been a long discussion, covered a lot of different topics, a lot of different things, and a lot of different people as well, and pronunciations, which is always a good thing. But appreciate you all coming on again.
Thanks for having
It's
me.
been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Like I say, Sheffield Wednesday game tonight. I'm going to make sure I never say Sheffield again because I know that does upset people. So Sheffield Wednesday game tonight. Going to be a big game. Going to be an important 3 points. Sunderland might go top of the table for what I think will probably be the second time since we dropped down to League One if we do win tonight, which is remarkable, to be honest. But hopefully that happens. Don't know whether we'll have a podcast out to talk about the game because obviously it is New Year's Eve tomorrow. I'm at work. Most people will be out at night. Everyone will be hungover on New Year's Day. Possibly for when the Fleetwood game was scheduled, we could maybe get something out then. I'm not too sure yet, but we'll see. But until then, we'll see you later.
That's all, folks.